Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, the night sweats, the irritability, brain fog, or that waking around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere, despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working. In fact, you're putting in all this effort and it feels like you're moving backwards. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've gone through these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to really help you understand how your body changes in this time of your life so you can reach those health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today we are going to talk about hypothyroidism and menopause because we see so many women coming into perimenopause and menopause, and then thyroid function starts to decline, and then boom, before you know it, you're hypothyroid. And it is something we talk about a lot. A lot of the women that we work with have lower thyroid function or have hypothyroidism or have Hashimoto's. So it is a very important topic for us to cover. It's the one that we get the questions on probably the most. So I really wanted to talk about this in full today because I haven't done it since like May of 2023. So it's been a hot minute since I dedicated some time to just talking about hypothyroidism and menopause and what that means for you. So the American Thyroid Association estimates that more than 27 million Americans have thyroid disease, but more than half of them have no idea. That is a huge amount of people. So women are actually 5 to 8 times more likely than men to develop a thyroid condition. So why does this matter? Well, we're going to dive into it, obviously. So let's talk about all the things about thyroid. So today we're going to cover symptoms of low thyroid function, how the thyroid actually works, common thyroid issues we see, the connection between thyroid and cortisol and stress, the connection between your thyroid and menopause and your menstrual cycle, thyroid and your gut, how to prevent thyroid issues as we age, what to eat to support our thyroid function, and of course, what to ask for if you're getting tested. Because usually you'll only get TSH tested, which isn't always the full picture, which I'm going to talk about at the end there for you. So we have a lot to cover. It's probably going to be a little bit longer, but I wanted this to be like your thyroid go-to podcast that is going to touch on everything for you, more surface level. I don't want to dig in too deep into the weeds of the super sciencey stuff because then I'll lose you. And then this podcast will be 4 hours long. So we are going to first talk about what are some of the symptoms that you experience when you have low thyroid function. I'm not going to name every single one because the list is long, but I'm going to list off the ones that are the most common, the ones that we see the most, and a lot of them actually sound just like menopause. So, changes in our mood, like depression, an increase in anxiety, more brain fog, sounds like menopause, right? Skin becomes dry, our hair starts to fall out, also kind of sounds like menopause. We have low energy, no matter how much you sleep, sounds like menopause. You struggle with your exercise capacity and recovering from your exercise, sounds familiar, right? You're not as interested in food or you lose your appetite, also very common in menopause. Start seeing gut health issues like bloating and constipation, also very common in menopause. Heartburn, right? Because your thyroid actually helps you produce stomach acid, but a lot of women start experiencing some heartburn type symptoms during perimenopause and menopause, and they just get given medications when really could actually be your thyroid. And of course, that wonderful weight gain or the inability to lose weight that you are struggling with. Again, These all sound very similar to menopause. So sometimes it takes a long time for women to get diagnosed with thyroid conditions because it kind of gets swept under the rug as, oh, this is just menopause, which is not okay. So what is the thyroid anyways? The thyroid, first of all, physically, it's a gland in your neck. It's in the shape of like a butterfly. It's actively controlled by our pituitary gland in our brain, which is going to be activated by our hypothalamus, which is another area in our brain that tells that pituitary gland what to do. So the function of that thyroid gland, that butterfly in your neck, the role that it has, or the function, is to take iodine, which is salt, right, found in our foods, and convert it into two very specific thyroid hormones. We have T4 and then we have T3, okay? So the thyroid mainly releases T4, and T4 is generally considered to be that inactive form of our thyroid hormone. T3 is the active amount. So we want to make sure we have enough T4 that can then convert to T3 so it's actually usable, okay? So you're going to have a few different hormones that we're going to talk about here. I'm going to tie it all in together so it makes sense, but T4, inactive, T3, what we can actually use, okay? So once your thyroid releases T4, that inactive form, into your bloodstream, certain cells in your body are going to then turn it into T3, that active form that we can actually use. So this is because cells that have receptors receive the effective thyroid hormone are better able to use T3 than T4, which is that inactive form that I talked about again. So we need to have that conversion to T3 so our body can more readily use thyroid hormones. This is why only testing one thing isn't enough, because we need to know, do we have enough of the inactive forms? Is our thyroid actually producing enough T4? Is our body actually converting T4 to T3? So are we getting enough there? So do we have enough of the inactive form to then convert to the active form so our body can actually use it? Okay, and it's really hard to get some doctors to test this, which is bonkers to me, but it is what it is, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. So there are a lot of cells in our body that are found in like tissues and glands and organs that convert that inactive form to the active form so we can use it. So some of the places that this happens is our thyroid, obviously. Our liver actually plays a really big role in being able to convert T4 to T3 to make it usable. So we need to take care of our liver, our kidneys, our muscles. So the more muscle that you have, not only will you look fit and look toned and have better blood sugar control, but it actually helps improve your thyroid function because we can convert the inactive form to the active form. Our pituitary gland, our gut. This is why addressing gut health is so important, because if our gut isn't in a place where it's healthy and it's inflamed and we're having food sensitivities and things like that, it makes it really hard for our body to convert the inactive form to the active form. And then, of course, our central nervous system as well, which is why it's so important to take care of our nervous system. So the thyroid hormone is going to affect literally every cell in your body and all of the organs. Okay, so, and why is this important? The thyroid hormones help regulate the rate at which your body uses calories. Okay, so it tells you, like, if your thyroid hormone is low, or your body's not good at producing it, our body is worse at burning calories, which is going to make weight loss really challenging, weight gain more likely. So this is why it's really important to take care of our thyroid. We also see that thyroid hormones will influence the rate of our heart rate, our body temperature, being able to influence the speed at which food moves through your intestines. So typically low thyroid hormone is going to result in your poor gut health, right? And vice versa. They play kind of like a role in between those two. It affects your brain development. It controls the way that your muscles contract. It manages your skin and bone maintenance, controlling the rate at which your body replaces dying cells. So your body is always constantly breaking down and building cells in your body to keep things healthy. So low thyroid hormone, we typically see like healing takes a little bit longer. Bone density might start to come down. Our skin doesn't look as great, right? It kind of is crepey or dry. So we want to make sure that we're supporting our thyroid to help us with those things as well. So now that we know how thyroid hormone affects literally our entire body and why it's so important, What tells the thyroid what to do and how to function? How does it turn off and on, right? Because we talked about how if you have low thyroid function, your metabolism slows down, your body is worse at burning calories, making it more likely for your body to hold on to fat or gain weight, right? If your thyroid hormone is healthy, right, we're producing enough, then it's easier to lose weight. So what is in control of that thyroid, right? Because that's going to be the biggest thing. What is actually affecting that, which is then affecting your ability to lose weight and feel good? So, as I mentioned prior, the thyroid is going to be in control of that pituitary gland in your brain. When the level of T3 or T4 drops too low in our body, the pituitary gland produces TSH, which stimulates the thyroid to produce more hormone. Under the influence of TSH, your thyroid would then make more T3, T4 and raise that in the blood levels. So this is kind of like you nagging your kid. So you're the pituitary, and then your daughter, Stacy, is your thyroid. So you are nagging at Stacy. Do your homework, do your chores, do your homework, do your chores, do your homework, do your chores. So you nagging is increasing that TSH level. And then Stacy does her chores, does her homework, does her chores, does her homework. She is producing T3 and T4. So this is how we keep things going. Okay, stick with me here. Promise this analogy will make sense. Okay, then when we see that there is enough chores done and we see that the homework is done, pituitary or you see this and you're like, okay, great. I don't have to nag anymore because things are good. So now we don't have to have as much TSH because there's adequate levels. You're getting what you need from your children. They're doing their chores and doing their homework. So then you're not as much, right? So this is kind of how it goes. It's almost like the pituitary gland is like the thermostat that determines, how much nagging we need to do in order for those things to be produced. Same with your metabolism. It determines how many calories your body's going to burn. Okay. So and the thyroid hormones are kind of like heat that way. Okay. The heat get back to the thermostat and then it's not on anymore, right? We have enough levels. We don't need to be, sending the signal. If the room gets too cold, then we start nagging again. Or if we see that the homework's piling up, the chores are piling up, we start nagging again to make sure those things get done, right? So, but you, the pituitary gland, are regulated by another gland known as the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is the part of the brain that produces TRH, thyroid releasing hormone, which tells you, the pituitary gland, to stimulate or nag at your daughter, Stacy, to get the homework done, to get her chores done. Okay. So this is like, I don't know, let's say there's a grandparent or something that's like, hey, notice, or maybe it's a teacher, hey, I noticed your daughter isn't getting her homework in. You're like, oh crap. Okay. Nag my daughter, nag my daughter, nag my daughter. Now Stacy's producing the homework. Everything's good. And now the nagging can stop. Teacher's not bothering you either. We're good, right? So what happens with hypothyroidism? So I hope that analogy kind of makes sense. So with hypothyroidism, which is a thing that we see most common in women, is that you have an underactive thyroid. And this happens when the thyroid can no longer produce enough T3 and T4 to keep the body functioning properly. So Stacy is not doing homework. She can't keep up with the nagging. She's not getting her homework done. She's not doing her chores. Okay. If this is left untreated, it can lead to high cholesterol levels, osteoporosis, heart disease, and depression. So low thyroid function, if we aren't addressing it, is going to lead to high cholesterol, osteoporosis, heart disease, and depression. Okay. These are all things we already see rise during perimenopause and menopause when estrogen goes down. Okay. So we need to be aware of that. Some symptoms of hypothyroidism are similar to symptoms reported in that menopausal transition, like I mentioned. So we have fatigue, we have forgetfulness, mood swings, weight gain, irregular menstrual cycles, cold intolerance, our hands and feet feel cold. And hypothyroidism, like I mentioned, is going to directly slow down your metabolism. Your body gets worse at burning calories, making it harder to burn calories, lose weight, and more likely that you're going to gain weight, right? So here's the thing. doctors will usually test for high levels of TSH to indicate hypothyroidism. So this is like you are nagging Stacy like crazy to get that homework done, to do her chores. Okay, so this is like your thyroid is yelling, your pituitary is yelling at your thyroid, hey, you need to produce more T3, more T4, more T3 to more T4, because it's not listening. So the signal gets louder. Okay, so this is what happens in hypothyroidism. Okay, so with hypothyroidism, women are far more affected than men. Okay, it's important to remember that from a holistic health perspective, thyroid disorders are usually a symptom or a byproduct of something going on deeper internally. This deeper thing is usually from some type of form of stress, which then causes an autoimmune response in the body. So remember how we talked about like the hypothalamus is yelling at the pituitary to then yell at your thyroid to produce enough hormone. Like this, you know what else the hypothalamus and pituitary gland also control? Your stress response. Dun, 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 which then is going to influence your cortisol output. So your body, that pituitary gland has a ton of really important roles, but the hypothalamus and pituitary can't do a bajillion things at once. Our body is awesome and can do a lot, but there becomes a point where we need to start prioritizing, right? So let's talk about stress here. This is my favorite part of the analogy. I promise it will all tie it in perfectly for you. So when our stress levels are high from undereating, over-exercising, being go, fasting, coffee on an empty stomach, doing a ton of cardio, not sleeping enough, we're skipping meals, we're not getting enough carbohydrates or protein in our diet, we've got deadlines at work and grief and trauma and taking our kids everywhere and we're always rushing and go. That's a lot of stress in our body, despite you thinking otherwise, right? Internally, your body is telling you, Steph, I am stressed out, stop. Okay. So what happens is when those cortisol levels go up, which already happens during perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen comes down, estrogen, one of its biggest roles is to help keep our cortisol levels in check. So before we could handle a 9 out of 10 before we saw our cortisol levels really rise, because estrogen could kind of buffer. Now that estrogen is lower, we can't buffer stress as well. So now we can only handle a 5 out of 10 before we start to see cortisol go up. When cortisol goes up, it signals the thyroid gland to stop producing as much thyroid hormone. Okay, let me say that again. When cortisol is high, it signals to your thyroid to stop producing as much thyroid hormone. This is because the pituitary gland, remember you as mom, it stops producing enough TSH, that nagging, when it's busy telling the adrenals to control cortisol and produce cortisol instead. So it's like it's trying to multitask, but it can't really do it well. So let me give you this analogy. We've already talked about Stacy. Stacy is your thyroid, right? We want her to do her chores, do her homework, do her chores, do her homework. So we can do that, right? But then you also have Jimmy. Jimmy is your toddler. And you know, he's that kind of toddler, like you love him, he's amazing, but you worry he might burn your house down, right? Like he's just that kid, you know? You just don't know what to expect with him. So then you find out that Jimmy has found some matches and he's lighting Kleenex on fire like my husband did in the schoolyard when he was little. So Jimmy, true story. So Jimmy is now at a risk of burning your entire house down. You are now prioritizing Stacy getting your homework and chores done, not nearly as important in this moment as making sure Jimmy doesn't burn your house down. Correct? Okay. So Jimmy is like your adrenals and he's producing cortisol. So you are like paying attention to that. But now no one's nagging at Stacy to do her homework and do her chores. And so by the time you kind of get things under control and you go to see Stacy to nag at her, well, Stacy has left. She left out her window. She's at a teen party doing Lord knows what. And now you are left with a very depleted body that doesn't have enough thyroid hormone because you've just been managing the stress response the entire time with Jimmy. Okay. So what we also see is that when this cortisol is like pumping through your body and in your bloodstream, it's also going to slow down the conversion of your T4 to your T3. So remember, T4 is the unusable or inactive form. T3 is the active form. So if cortisol is pumping through your bloodstream, you literally cannot convert thyroid hormone into the usable form for your body to use. This is why getting everything tested is so important, so you can get a full picture as to what's actually happening in your body, okay? So we can see that cortisol has a pretty direct effect on how the body functions with thyroid hormones, which is then going to slow down your metabolism, make your body worse at burning calories, which makes it harder to lose weight and makes it much more likely that you'll gain weight, right? So we can see how high chronic stress over time will likely cause a suppression or a lowering in thyroid function over time and can actually induce hypothyroidism and a slowed metabolism. I hope that all makes sense. Okay, so stress makes it so your body doesn't have enough TSH yelling at your thyroid hormone to produce T4, T3, and then whatever T4 is in your bloodstream, cortisol actually stops it from being able to be turned into its usable form. This is why we stress about stress so much here, because it impacts literally everything. And remember, chronic stress can be caused by so many things. And just because you feel like you are handling it well does not mean this system isn't happening inside your body. Okay, you might be like, I've handled worse. It's not that bad now. I've learned how to cope. But if we aren't actually doing things that actually bring those cortisol levels into a proper range, it doesn't matter what you tell yourself all day. You are going to have less thyroid function. You are going to have less conversion to the usable form. You're going to experience all these negative side effects and potentially lead yourself to having hypothyroidism. We see this in women who do keto all of the time because carbohydrates help bring cortisol levels down. So this is why it's so important to have adequate carbohydrates, especially since women are more likely, 5 to 8 times more likely than men, to develop a thyroid condition. So I hope it's hitting home. I hope this makes sense. So now let's talk about stress can be caused by everything, right? Like family, trauma, not eating enough food, doing a bunch of cardio, not recovering well, skipping meals, fasting, caffeine on empty stomach, not getting enough sleep, all of these things. Okay, so if you have poor gut health, if you have lots of bloating that gets worse as the day goes on, if you're not sleeping well, if you're having energy crashes, these are all signs that your body is stressed out and we need to support it better. Okay, otherwise, we're increasing your risk of developing hypothyroidism. We don't want that. And now, what about thyroid and menopause? There is actually a huge connection here, which is wild. So there was a research study in 2007 that showed women with a thyroid disorder and severe menopause experienced improved symptoms after getting treated for their thyroid disorder. So this suggests that treating your thyroid disorders can actually help manage your menopausal symptoms, and that your thyroid disorders can cause an onset of severe menopausal symptoms that you wouldn't see if your thyroid was in good health. You need to connect those dots. Like low thyroid function, worse menopausal symptoms. When thyroid is improved, better menopausal symptoms. Okay, so we need to do things that support your thyroid. Before menopause, an imbalance in thyroid levels may also result in heavy or irregular menstrual periods, or even skipping periods, which is why getting hormones tested is so freaking important. There is a hypothesis in the scientific community, as more research is slowly starting to come out, finally, that thyroid disorders may cause early onset menopause before age 40 or even in their early 40s. Early onset of menopause can actually occur from high thyroid releasing hormone from the brain in people with hypothyroidism. And these high levels trigger your pituitary gland, so you, to release prolactin. You've probably heard of this if you're ever pregnant. It helps stimulate breast milk for you. And too much prolactin will actually interfere with the ability of your ovaries to produce estrogen. Okay, so high stress, we have this higher TRH levels, which is going to increase prolactin, which is going to decrease your estrogen. And we know that estrogen can lead to reproductive health issues and symptoms like infrequent period and absent periods, hot flashes, vaginal dryness, infertility, right? So as we can see, that stress response can do so much change in how the brain communicates with our thyroid, with our ovaries, with everything in our body, which is going to change how our body functions as we age. Even when we think it's normal, or, I'm doing okay, or I feel like I'm handling good. I don't think that I'm that stressed. I've learned how to cope. It's not as bad as it used to be before. This stuff is still happening. And we're so in denial of how stressed out we are these days. And we are freaking stressed out. So we can see how interconnected stress and the thyroid and hormones, they're all so interconnected with our reproductive health and our stress response and menopause and symptoms and being able to lose weight. It's all together. And this is why getting a full picture of your entire body, and why we ask you so many questions on consultation calls, and why I ask you so many questions when you ask me a question in DMs, because I need to have the full picture, because everything is connected. We can't just isolate one little thing. We need to take a bigger look back at how is this functioning and affecting our body as a whole, so we can actually address what is the root cause. Why is our thyroid not doing so good? Where are these symptoms coming from? Why are we experiencing this, that, and the other? What is the root cause? Because with most women we work with, it doesn't have to do with they're not working hard enough at trying to lose weight. Usually it has something to do with stress and where our hormones are at, right? And then we also have the gut and how that plays into things. 20% of our thyroid hormone conversion of that inactive form to our active form happens in our gut. So if we're already struggling with our thyroid hormone and getting levels to where they need to be, if our gut is inflamed and we're having issues there, we're already losing 20% of the conversion that could be happening. That's a significant amount. So if your gut is inflamed, we can't use thyroid hormone at the cellular level. We have heartburn because thyroid hormone helps us with stomach acid production. And when we don't have enough stomach acid, that leads to a lot of issues with your esophageal sphincter not closing, which leads to heartburn. But a lot of us just get put on medications as opposed to hey, how's your thyroid? Because that medication to help you with your heartburn or changing your stomach acid isn't addressing the root cause of the problem, which is still happening despite you taking that medication. Because the thyroid is the issue there, which again is why getting tested is so freaking important. So why do we all have thyroid issues, right? So many women we talk to have thyroid issues. Why is this so common? Well, approximately 1 in 8 women will be affected by a clinical thyroid condition at some point in their lives. 1 out of 8. That is a huge amount of women when you think of how many women there are in the world. The risk for women is about 10 times higher than that of men. And the prevalence of thyroid disorders is highest in women over 60. It's such a specific demographic. And it's actually a pretty shocking statistic if you ask me. So typically, why are women suffering with this so much more than men? What is the difference? Well, one scientific reason that we could find for this from doing some research and digging around, because we did a whole bunch of that, right, is that thyroid disorders are often triggered by some sort of autoimmune response, which happens when the body's immune system starts to attack itself. I'm sure most of us have heard of autoimmune disorders, or maybe we have one ourselves, but that opened up a whole other Pandora's box of, okay, why do women experience more autoimmune conditions than men? Why is that a thing? Is there even an answer? Well, turns out the general consensus right now is not the answer that we wanted to hear, but it's because we are female, and that is it, which is so annoying, right? So annoying. If you ever took any kind of like basic genetics class, you know that women are born with 2 X chromosomes, whereas men are born with an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. Turns out that wonderful X chromosome is associated with a greater amount of autoimmune related genes, as well as immune regulatory genes, which aids and induces immunological responses in our body, like how our body responds to things. And the larger number of genes originating from the X chromosome creates a far greater possibility of different mutations on that gene. So just where like things cross, we have double the chances of seeing these things. So it increases our immune issue genes by being expressed than compared to someone who only has 1 X chromosome, which is men, right? So this puts women at a greater risk for developing autoimmune conditions in general, just because we have 2 X chromosomes. Lucky us, right? Because men just have 1. So having those 2 X chromosomes basically just like increases the likelihood dose by 2. And because of that, women are predisposed to more autoimmune conditions and issues, and actually our body overreacting to things, and particularly stress compared to men. So stress, like men can handle a lot more stress than women. They can work out harder, they can work out longer, they can like do the fasting and their body doesn't respond as aggressively as women. They can be in calorie deficits for a longer time. This is why when you do like a challenge with your husband, all he does is like cut out some alcohol for a little bit and sees great changes. And for you, we're not seeing much. You're increasing your exercise and somehow you feel worse, right? And this is because our stress tolerance is so much lower than that of men's, which again, sucks, which is why men and women, we do approach nutrition differently. And we have to pay attention a lot more to how is your body responding? Like, how is your sleep, your energy, your stress, your digestion? Are you experiencing more anxiety? Are you feeling more grounded? How is your heart rate? Are you taking time to de-stress? Whereas with men, it's a lot easier, unfortunately, for most, because their stress tolerance is going to be higher because of their they have that X chromosome and Y chromosome. We have 2 X chromosomes, but also they have testosterone and all these other things, right? So this is why you can't just approach things the same. And we have to pay attention to the thyroid. We have to pay attention to stress response, because all these things are so intimately related to a greater extent than with men, right? So how can we support our thyroid? Because now I'm sure many of you are like freaking out. You all think you have thyroid issues, right? So how can we support our thyroid? Let's give you some tangible steps here. The first thing would be get tested regularly. For women over 40, it is so important to get your blood work done annually, because stressors can change very quickly and can cause shutdown in the body quite quickly and suddenly. And there's a lot of things that can change in a year. So we know that when your stress response goes up, it's going to affect your thyroid, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, your androgens, your gut health, your inflammatory markers, your blood sugar control, your liver abilities. So having all of this information every year is very important, because so much can change in a year. Okay, so it's really important to make sure you're not just getting TSH tested, because that's how much you were yelling at Stacy, right? How much nagging is being done. But we also need to test T3 and T4, right? Because we know that T4 is the inactive form, but is your thyroid producing enough of the hormone, right? Because your TSH could be fine, but we're not producing enough, right? Your thyroid isn't keeping up. Or we also need to measure our T3. Is our body actually converting T4 to T3? Is there enough T4 to convert to T3? Because that will also tell you your body isn't doing so great. We need to address this. Also testing your reverse T3, because that's telling us that your body is actually turning it into an inactive form again, or the opposite of your T3s. So your body can't use that. Or antibodies, because that tells you your body is attacking your thyroid. So all of these things, depending where they are can tell us that your thyroid function isn't doing so well. TSH just tells you how much is your body yelling at your thyroid. That's it. So we need a bigger picture of everything to really understand what is the problem. Is our body just not converting stuff well? Are we not producing it enough? Are we not sending the signal to our thyroid? Is our body attacking itself? Like, there's so many ways that hypothyroidism can be manifested and caused. So we need to really understand what is happening, because TSH isn't enough. For some people it is, but usually we can catch things a lot sooner if we can see a full panel, because then we can address those issues and the causes and really optimize how your body is functioning to set you up for success before it becomes a problem. We want to avoid the medications. We want to be proactive with our health. We want to treat it before it's an issue, right? Because otherwise it's like, oh, you have cancer, but it's not progressed far enough, so we're going to wait till it gets really bad before we try to do something about it. That's exactly the approach that's getting done with thyroid, and it drives me freaking crazy. I'm not going to rant too much because I can get away on it, right? Number 2, so get tested regularly. That's number 1. Number 2, eat enough. Okay? I've said it time and time again, you need to eat enough food. Eating fewer calories than you should, or always chasing fat loss, always trying to be on a diet, is a stress on your body and causes your thyroid to slow down. We see this in women all the time. I have friends that I've helped coach that have done blood work during their fat loss phases. We always see thyroid function slow down. So we need to make sure that you aren't always in that space. We need to actually give your body time where it can recover so it functions properly, and your body's better burning calories and makes weight loss easier anyways. So we need to make sure that we are eating enough calories to help keep our thyroid functioning optimally. The next one is wild, but eating your carbs. We say this a lot. I have a whole podcast on carbs. I have a whole podcast on blood sugar. You can go back and listen to those. But carbohydrates actually help improve thyroid function and your metabolism, so makes your body better at burning calories. Studies have shown that even when calories are adequate, people on a keto diet who had like lower carbs had significantly lower thyroid function than people who ate carbs with the same amount of calories per day. Okay, so this doesn't mean go crazy with carbs. I'm not telling you to go to Krispy Kreme and get a dozen donuts, right? I'm saying have good whole foods, have your fruit, have your potatoes, have your rice, have your whole grains, have your oats, have your veggies. We need to make sure that we're getting enough of those things. We want to keep our protein high. We want to make sure we're eating mostly whole foods to keep our fiber adequate, and that our calories are consistent day to day. So we don't want to be 1,500 calories one day and 2,100 the next. We want to stay within like a 200 calorie range for consistency, getting adequate carbs, adequate protein, adequate fiber. Okay, if you need help figuring this out, message me. I help women figure this out for free all the time. I will tell you what you need for calories, where your protein should be, all those kinds of things, but be prepared to go back and forth via email or messenger a few times, because I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, because I need to know, in order to help you, everything that's happened to your body. I need a full picture so I can make sure that I'm giving you the best advice possible, because if I don't feel like I have enough information, I'm not comfortable giving you guidelines, because I want to make sure that I am being able to benefit you as best as possible. Okay, so message me if you need help with that. The next one is de-stressing and self-care. We say this so much and you guys get so annoyed, but stress is literally the cause of like 95% plus of all illnesses and disorders in women. I truly, truly believe this, and we see this. We can tie it back to everything, right? And from the X chromosome factor we talked about, and that we're at an increased risk of developing autoimmune conditions, and we have lower stress tolerance, it makes sense that we need to make more time for us. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have such a hard time prioritizing ourselves. We feel guilty. Like we should always be trying to help others, which yes, it's a great thing, but you can't help others when you're not helping yourself. You can't show up as the best version of yourself. So this is like when we're looking at self-care, this doesn't mean like booking a massage all the time, because like some people can't afford that. It takes up a lot of time. It could be as simple as reading a book for 5 minutes, sitting outside with a cup of tea with your feet in the grass. It can be coloring, knitting, crocheting, listening to some music, going for a light walk, just laying out in the sunshine, like little things that fill up your cup, a crossword puzzle, a Sudoku, a word search, doing some crafting, some baking, anything that slows down your heart rate, slows down your breathing, and you feel good and you feel relaxed and it's cup filling. That's what we want to focus on. It doesn't have to be this crazy big routine, just anything like that. Doing box breathing, putting your feet up. These are all things that are going to help slow down your heart rate, slow down your breathing, bring those cortisol levels down to help support your thyroid, right? Very important. Number 5 is increasing iodine. So adequate levels of iodine will help produce thyroid hormones. Okay, so AKA salt. Important. Okay, because of the rage over the last 10 years of Himalayan salt and that being healthier for you, many people have stepped away from using table salt, right? However, table salt is iodized. We need that because we used to have a ton of iodine problems back in the day. And this can be really helpful to just shake a little bit of table salt on your meals. Super easy. Plus salt just makes everything taste better. Add salt to soup, delicious. To pasta, delicious. Like salt makes everything taste better. You don't need a ton of it. Like we worry about high iodine because a lot of people have eaten a lot of fast food and lots of processed meats and things like that are higher in iodine. But if we're working towards having a more whole food diet, we actually need to make sure we're getting enough. So just shake a little bit on your meal and you'll be fine. Okay? It's really, really good for you. And then, of course, movement. Walking daily can help you feel energized and keep your thyroid levels adequate. So without having too much of a stress response like HIIT workouts do, for example. Not great for people with thyroid hormone issues. Resistance training, actually. So strength training where you're lifting heavier. You're lifting like 6 to 8 repetitions. Every week you're trying to get stronger. You're slowing down the movements. You're upping your weights. Really trying to get stronger has been shown to increase thyroid function as well. So don't forget those weights. Plus, this is the kind of exercise that will stimulate muscle growth. And the more muscle we have, muscle is one of the places that converts T4 to T3. So the more muscle you have, not only will you be healthier and more fit and improve your thyroid function, it's also going to help with that conversion of the thyroid hormone T4 into the active form T3 so your body can use it. Very, very important. Okay, so the 6 ways there were to get tested regularly, eat enough carbs, focus on de-stressing and self-care, increase iodine, and get some movement in. Okay, so those are like the 6 main umbrella things. But what about specific foods to improve your thyroid? Well, iodine, like I mentioned, part of what thyroid hormone is made of. So you can have this from seafood, seaweed, some table salt. Iron is the next one. Helps with thyroid production, conversion of T4 to T3. So there's also, you can get that from chicken and beef, pork, seafood, dark leafy greens. Zinc is also great. It helps create thyroid hormone and again, help with that conversion of T4 to T3. This can be found in shellfish and red meat. Plant-based resources, unfortunately, are not as bioavailable because it's bound to phytic acid. So you might have to supplement with zinc if you're more plant-based. Vitamin B complex, I love it. It helps with so many hormone pathways, and it helps improve the production of thyroid. It helps improve your immune function as well and detoxing in your body. And this can be found in beef, in chicken, in salmon, eggs, leafy greens, seeds. Just eat a nice whole food diet. Vitamin Bs are notoriously challenging to absorb though. And if you're on birth control or have been on birth control, it really depletes you of your B vitamins. So supplementing with a vitamin B50 can be super helpful. Have it in the morning because it does give you energy. So if you have it at nighttime, it can affect your sleep. It might turn your pee like a bright yellow, almost green color. That's okay. That's your body just getting rid of it. You'll always pee out if you have too much. So you don't have to worry about overdosing on it by any means. Vitamin D, that helps transport thyroid hormone into your cells. So not only getting sunshine will help with that, but salmon and other fish liver oil, mackerel, things like that. Selenium needed to produce T4 and convert to T3. This is found in seafood, Brazil nuts, meats. Omega-3 is amazing for improving inflammation, which is an issue when estrogen goes down. So omega-3s we always recommend to women as well. It helps support your cell membranes to allow thyroid function, your thyroid hormone to go into those cells where they are needed. So you can find that in salmon, cold water, fatty fish, for example, but supplementing is always a great idea. Honestly, for omega-3s, it's just tough to get into our diet regularly. And then magnesium, I love recommending anyways. It's super great for inflammation, recovery, improving your sleep, so taking it at nighttime. And it also helps that conversion of T4 to T3. So you can try and get more magnesium sources from foods like leafy greens, nuts, seeds, avocado. But honestly, just taking a supplement at nighttime can be helpful. They are fairly affordable as well, so you don't have to worry about like the cost of that. So omega-3, vitamin B, and magnesium are all really great supplements to take that are fairly affordable. You can get them at any grocery store, drugstore. You don't need crazy specific brands, just to help with this in general. And it also helps with a lot of hormonal symptoms that you experience in menopause. So it's really just a win-win either way. And then lastly, I want to talk about what tests measure thyroid levels again here for you. So there's several blood tests that can measure your thyroid levels and really assess how well your thyroid is working. So these are called thyroid function tests, and this is what they should include: TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies, and thyroglobulin. So for these, TSH tells you if your body is yelling at your thyroid to produce thyroid hormone. T4 tells you if your body is producing enough of that hormone. T3 tells you if your body is converting T4 into T3, which allows your body to actually use it. Reverse T3 means that your body is converting T4 into a fat storing version instead of a usable form of T3. So that's also a very important one to check. Thyroid antibodies can help identify different types of autoimmune thyroid conditions, and thyroglobulin is used to diagnose thyroiditis. So that's a thyroid inflammatory disease. And it can also monitor the treatment for thyroid cancers as well. So those are kind of the panel that you really want to pay attention to. But again, if you guys need help figuring out how much you should be eating, what you need support on, if you're getting enough carbohydrates or if you're getting enough calories, just message me. I promise you I will always answer. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay because, as you can imagine, a lot of people like to take advantage of that, which is great. And I absolutely encourage you to do so. So please message me. And again, please subscribe, share, leave a review. We don't do ads. This is the only way that more women will get access to this information to improve their health naturally. So again, please share, subscribe, leave a review. And if you need any help, just message me directly. I am always, always, always more than happy to help. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.